You have a number of players right now that are really moving up ADP ranks in Dynasty, and one of them being Nico Collins. Obviously, Nico getting the new contract, becoming, in financial terms, the wide receiver one in Houston. You're talking about Tank Dell on a rookie deal. You're talking about Stephon Diggs, and Buffalo paid most of the contract, and it's 1 year, right? Mm-hmm. Nico Collins is effectively now the wide receiver one in Houston. And he's locked in to be the wide receiver one for the next 3 years. You're talking about a year of where Nico Collins was a wide receiver one in fantasy football. In a year where Tank Dell, yes, if he had not gotten hurt, maybe Tank Dell was going to do something special as well, because he was really on track to do a lot.
I mean, something special. He was already doing stuff special that got him up to being worth a 23 first plus.
Exactly. And with Nico, 17.5 points per game in PPR leagues last year. 17.5. And he's the wide receiver 12 overall last year in fantasy football. And so this is a guy that not only has shown that he has proven production, that is on an offense where you have CJ Stroud throwing him the ball in one of the better passing offenses in the league, but now he's on a new contract. And so when you're looking at like what we use to evaluate dynasty value, and what we use for our 3-year outlooks when we're talking about, like, what is this player going to do in the next 3 years? Nico Collins just got his 3-year outlook for us, and it involves quite a bit of moolah. And so because of that moolah, Nico Collins moved up quite a bit in my rankings as well. I think I had him ranked in my dynasty rankings as like the 41st overall player. So price-wise, that's going to put him early 4th, which is a lot of people were taking him there before, and it was like, you know, if you were, it paid off now. But, you know, looking at the Flock community rankings as well, Nico, the community has him at 42nd. So you quit playing with your ring right now while I'm talking.
It's going to be lost.
Nico, again, is a guy that, I mean, I'm curious because you were skeptical of the... You were more.
I've been skeptical the entire offseason. I was like, they're going to get a wide receiver. They're going to do it through the draft or free agency. Lo and behold, they get Stephon Diggs. His value doesn't really move when that happens, which was surprising to me.
Diggs
and then
or Nico's? Tank's moved.
Moved a bit. That's I thought that was interesting as well. But I want to play a little devil's advocate here because while I'm not on the fence about Nico's value, I have no problem with Nico's value. I do sometimes wonder if I'm more of like should I pivot off this guy and go get someone else who I know is going to get more consistent targets? Because I'm looking at Nico Collins, and I'm seeing 109 targets last year, 80 receptions for 16-plus yards per reception and 8 touchdowns. And I look at Jalen Waddle in 2022, and I see 117 targets, 75 receptions, 18 yards per catch, 8 touchdowns. Does that sound familiar? I see Jalen Waddle get the same amount of targets and receptions in 2023 with half the touchdowns, or 14 yards per catch compared to 18, and he ends up being a wide receiver 2 or 3, like a 2 on a points per game basis when he's healthy. And that makes me worry a little bit about Nico's upside. But again, at his price, is it reasonable in the 4th round? That's why I personally don't have that much of an issue with his price, because his price is not what Waddle's price was last year.
Sure.
Waddle was going in the mid-second, late second. Nico has pretty much the same contract, right?
Yeah.
And tied to CJ Stroud, who can push the ball downfield consistently. And yeah, is Nico potentially touchdown dependent? He might be. I kind of want to know what you think about that, because I do think those numbers are very, very interesting. Like, he only had 1 more reception than Jordan Addison.
When you look at the targets and what we want to see from a target standpoint for elite fantasy wide receivers, he's not hitting that.
No, he's not.
And that's been our red flag all offseason. And I would say Jalen Waddle...
That's the step up we want to see.
It is. And you saw that with somebody even like A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown, like year over year from 2022 to 2023, had like 15 or 20 more targets and had less touchdowns, but was able to maintain his production because he was getting more receptions. Right. With Waddle, I think that's a good point. I think the big difference, obviously, is that the difference between Stroud and Tua is fairly astronomical, I think, especially when it comes to supporting wide receiver 2s. I think both of them can support an elite wide receiver 1, but then supporting a wide receiver 2, like, I feel like Waddle's always going to be good with Tua, but he could never, I don't think Tua is probably going to support 2 wide receiver 1s like he did that year.
Yeah. Well, a counterpoint to my own counterpoint, too, and I think something that's important to know is I think there is a significant difference between the way that Houston's offense is going to look this year versus what even Miami's offense is going to look like. Because when you look at Waddle in 2022, that was Mike McDaniel's first year as a head coach, and he got a lot of criticism in the offseason after his rookie season as a head coach for not running the ball as much as he did in San Francisco as an offensive coordinator. It seemed like he really took that to heart and ran the frick out of the ball in 2023, and the running backs ended up taking 33 all-purpose touchdowns. collectively. And that clearly Waddle took the hit there.
Yeah.
Because Tyreek Hill was out of this world. He scored less touchdowns, I think, than he did in 2022, and he still was more productive. Waddle was the one that took the hit. Now, you have to either assume that C.J. Stroud, like you said, obviously C.J. Stroud, better quarterback than Tua, I think we would assume at this point.
Oh, yeah.
But what are the Houston Texans going to do with their running backs in the red zone? How are they going to utilize them? Is it going to be similar-ish to how Mike McDaniel utilizes his running backs in the Dolphins offense? Or would you say, well, this isn't a track star team. This is more of a traditional running backfield for a air raid offense in CJ Stroud where they pass first, give Mixon the ball here and there. Maybe it's between the 20s. Maybe they give him goal line carries, but he's not going to combine with Dameon Pierce for 33 all-purpose touchdowns, will he?
Bingo. Yeah, no, that's exactly true. That's exactly the point. Like that their offenses are not created equally.
And the bummer thing is this leaves me with the same question that I had before is who's the odd man out of the 3 wide receivers? Or can they all still be productive?
We've talked about it. We've talked about it on the show. There have been a couple of instances in the last even 6 years where there have been 3 top 30 wide receivers on the same team. I think that's possible. Because Tank Dell's already practicing.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
So there's an injury discount baked into Tank Dell's price right now in Dynasty. But
that's funny. I didn't even think about that.
That's definitely bringing down. He's going 6th round. Yeah. After what he did his rookie year.
Yeah.
It's like him and Stroud lost their chemistry or something. But you're right. Somebody's going to be the odd man out. I highly doubt it's. I think it's. From a production standpoint or value standpoint, odd man out. Yeah. Because from a production standpoint.
My worry with Nico's price in the contract is sometimes contracts can be a little bit overvalued. For example, Jalen Waddle gets the 3-year extension and he skyrockets up boards and his situation didn't change. And it's not going to change for the foreseeable future. We liked his value before because we knew he was going to get paid. He gets paid. His value ends up getting way too high. So my worry is with Nico Collins, maybe his value could end up getting a little bit too high where it's he's locked in for the next 3 years, but it's not like he's getting top dollar at the wide receiver position. He's not being paid like the best of the best. Maybe they're paying him because he is a valuable asset in the offense, and maybe he's still just going to get 110 targets.
I think even if he does get it to 110 targets, the nature of the offense and the type of player he is, I still would think he's going to produce as a top 18 wide receiver. And when you're talking about a guy on a 3-year deal, it's doing that. And it would be different, I think, if he were going 2-3 turn like Waddle was. But if he really is, and again, in the community rankings, he's going in the 4th. He's going early 4th, mid 4th. I think there is a great value. And that's where I have him ranked now. Yeah. Who am I not ranking him over, though? Devonta Smith.
He's still in the same tier that we had him initially. I had him in the same tier as Pittman and Devonta Smith before, and he still is for me now.
Olave's up there. He's approaching that Olave Ayuk tier. So, yeah, I'm fine with that price. I think it's warranted. I think now... I think just the fact that we were kind of playing guessing game with those wide receivers, and then we saw which one they paid first. They have not paid Tank Dell. They've not paid Stephon Diggs.
Well, they don't have to pay Tank Dell, and they don't have to pay Stephon Diggs.
Right.
That is part of it too.
It is, but
because Nico Collins is going into the 4th year of his rookie deal.
But with that being said, they could have just stuck with Tank and Stephon Diggs and been
and then just drafted Nico one next year.
Yeah. But they invested in Nico. So I think it's true. I think it's warranted. I'm ranking him higher, and I honestly think that
after all that discussion, I think we have him ranked in the same area.
We do.
So it's just good to talk about, and honestly something that's been a pretty hot topic in a lot of our team blueprints where we have anticipated the price and the value fluctuations up until this point, and it's worked out for people up to this point as well because we said move off of Nico Collins before the Stephon Diggs move. Stephon Diggs gets signed. There was a little bit of a dip there. So they were like, I'm feeling good. Now you go invest in Nico Collins. Now you're feeling good if you did because now he has a contract. But if you want one of those team blueprints specifically, you want that customizable feedback about your team, you go over to flockfantasy.com/domain, sign up for code domain, and get the Mother Flocker tier. And then you submit your team blueprint on the site. We will do all of the work of giving your customizable feedback on your roster. We'll answer every single question that you have after we give that blueprint back to you as well. This is what we do. The blueprint is our bread and butter. We spend so much more time on the blueprints than we do recording videos on a weekly basis. It takes so much time and it's so worth it. We absolutely love doing it. But another guy that I think is really interesting right now who has been moving up boards really since the NFL draft is Rhamondre Stevenson.
Yeah. I think with Rhamondre, I think the clear reason is they did not bring in anybody else. I mean, okay, I guess you could categorize Gibby as somebody that could compete for some targets in that backfield. But with Rhamondre, like, his price has significantly improved. Antonio Gibson hasn't really shown that he's going to do anything. I mean, in the last 2 years since he had that really good year in 2021, I think it was. And that offense is going to be different. It's not Bill Belichick. It's a new head coach. It's a new quarterback. It's hopefully an improved offense in what was, they had one of the better defenses last year and just absolutely no offense. And so I think a lot of people are kind of clinging to that.
A lot of injuries on defense too. They didn't have Judon or Gonzalez.
I know. And so with Rhamondre, like, he's one of those cases where, we over-adjusted twice, I think. We got too high on Rhamondre. We got too low on Rhamondre, and then he jumped up. We got too high on Rhamondre, and he moved down, right? And so now you have Rhamondre Stevenson. I actually don't know where his value is. I think it's the 9th, 10th round or something in Dynasty Fantasy Football. But in terms of where I'm personally ranking him, like, I would give Rhamondre a little bit of a boost in my rankings just because I think when you're talking about a rookie quarterback, I think a rookie quarterback is going to rely on those checkdowns a lot. And I think Drake May's good enough to make those throws too. Good enough to make a check down, but you'd be surprised. A lot of quarterbacks are reluctant to take the check down passes.
Yeah.
And I think he will. And so with Rhamondre, like, he's a guy I definitely don't want to overreact a third time about and be like, now we're way too low on Rhamondre.
Yeah, there's an interesting mix of guys going around him because there's a lot of guys I'm seeing in this range that I'm not sold on, and there's a lot of guys in here that I think are a screaming value. For example, Calvin Ridley. I'd rather have Calvin Ridley. It's not against Rhamondre. I just think Calvin Ridley is a ridiculously good value right now given his contract and his situation. David Njoku. I'd probably rather have David Njoku given what he did last year and the targets that he was getting, especially in the last half of the season. Alvin Kamara. You know how we feel about Alvin Kamara. We love the guy. But look at some of the other guys. Najee Harris. I think Rhamondre has a higher ceiling than Najee Harris. Jalen Warren. I think Rhamondre has a higher ceiling than Jalen Warren. Rhamondre Stevenson is like Jalen Warren and Najee Harris combined, because he can actually do everything that they do combined.
He's got workhorse size and also has receiving upside.
Exactly. Javonte Williams has just as many questions. Evan Ingram, I don't know. I'd probably rather have Ingram. Blake Corum, I don't know what the heck he's going to do this year. I have no idea.
Probably
Kendry
nothing.
Miller, no idea. Jake Ferguson, this might be a hot take. Give me Rhamondre all day. All day long. Zach Charbonnet, I mean, he's debatably the running back 2 in his offense behind Kenneth Walker, who can actually take a bell cow workload. Brian Robinson, I think we've seen him reach his peak. To me, I do think Rhamondre Stevenson's value is pretty good here, unless you're able to pivot off of one of those other values that we do like more in Calvin Ridley or Alvin Kamara, but like that's just kind of splitting hairs at that point.
Yeah.
So.
Kelce. Talk about Kelce. This is warranted, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you're seeing a lot of this will be kind of a main thing that you see as we go down this list. There's a lot of veterans that have started to skyrocket up dynasty rankings because people realize every single year it's a cycle. I don't understand how it's like how people don't catch on to it, but in June and July, every single year people realize that it takes points
veterans are good
to win leagues. So veterans are good to invest in. And Travis Kelce, it did help that he got an extension. It really did, because what is he now? Is he 35 yet? Or is he 34? He's old. He's going up there, and he hasn't really slowed down. Like, he was still the tight end 2 last year on what was a down season when he was injured for a lot of the year because he started banged up with that knee hyperextension or whatever. And with Kelce, like, I don't think I have to tell you who he is or what he does with Patrick Mahomes. I think I should just tell you that he's a cheat code at the tight end position, and he is currently still value equivalent to Will Levis, who's a second-round quarterback where they can move on from him in a heartbeat if he doesn't work out. I know people are optimistic about Brian Callahan and what he offers to Will Levis's development, but there's questions there. There absolutely are questions there. And if Will Levis works out, how high is he going to rank in this market of quarterbacks right now in Superflex leagues? I don't really know how high. Like, is he going to be a league winner at the quarterback position? Not like Travis Kelce is going to be at the tight end position.
I mean, Travis Kelce's been a top 3 tight end in fantasy for 8 straight years.
Yeah. Same thing kind of applies to Bo Nix here as well. Michael Penix, who isn't going to see the field for 3 years. Devontae Adams, same situation. He's a veteran wide receiver.
I mean, you're talking
Christian
about
Kirk, Baker Mayfield.
Positionally, like, having an elite, clear advantage at tight end is going to make a much bigger difference than having a good wide receiver in your flex spot. Because you have to start a tight end, right? Yeah. You have to start one tight end. You with your flex spots, you can start a running back, you can start a wide receiver, but those positions are far more abundant in talent and abundant in production, especially wide receiver now when you have a million guys that could be wide receiver 2s. Yeah. You have a lot more options there. And the threshold for a wide receiver 3, that points average for wide receiver 3s is going up and up and up every year because there are so many more talented wide receivers. And with the passing production going up, you have a lot of productive wide receivers in the NFL. With tight ends, you still really only have 6 tight ends in Dynasty that are going to win you your league. Kelce being one of them. Kelce being the guy that's done it. Kelce being the guy that's on a top 10 passing offense in the league and a Super Bowl winning roster. Kelce, the guy that's playing with the best quarterback in a long time with Patrick Mahomes. I won't say ever, even though I want you to piss Tom Brady fans off. Maybe the most talented quarterback ever, the most talented player ever.
Getting closer and closer with every Super Bowl.
And so, yeah, he is. That'd be awesome. Yeah. But with Kelce, like, he's a guy you're getting 6th, 7th round, and he was a guy you're getting 8th, 9th round before. If you bought low on Kelce before, I think it was a smart move, but now especially, it's really good. Etienne, Travis type is going to be our next one here, and he's a guy that notoriously we have been lower on, and everybody has hated our guts for it.
Mainly my guts, because I'm lower on Etienne than he is. And my main reason for it is, would I rather have Etienne and his touchdown dependency, or Rachaad White at a fraction of the price who is not touchdown dependent, or Jonathan Brooks who's in a really good situation? Yeah, I'm proven, but I can get Jonathan Brooks or Rachaad White plus in exchange for Travis Etienne. That's my biased opinion with, statistical backing. But Travis Etienne's price right now, and the reason he skyrocketed up boards is merited, obviously. Same situation as Rhamondre. They didn't draft a running back. All this talk that Doug Peterson said he was going to give Rhamondre Stevenson less carries than he did in 2023, that's...
Not Rhamondre.
What?
You said Rhamondre.
Okay. All this talk of Doug Peterson saying that... sorry, you were laughing in the middle.
Well, I thought he was going to leave it in, but you restarted.
Yeah, I'm going to restart. All this talk that Doug Peterson is going to give Travis Etienne less carries than he did in 2023 seems like he didn't really deliver when they didn't draft a running back in this year's class. Now, Tank Bigsby, still a 3rd-round running back investment. Maybe he'll get more opportunity this year. I don't really know. But what I personally do know is I'm not really buying the hype with Travis Etienne skyrocketing up boards, and I don't really think this is the time to invest in him. If you were to invest in him, it was definitely before the NFL draft, not now, in my opinion.
I don't think you can be in on Travis Etienne and be out on Rachaad White. And honestly, I've even seen recently, some creators really out on Rachaad White because of his inefficiency on the ground. And to that, I say, why would I care about that if he's scoring me points? And that's kind of how I feel about Travis Etienne.
Yes.
The difference is Travis Etienne's being drafted.
He's more expensive.
2 rounds higher than Rachaad White.
Yeah.
If Travis Etienne's price was a little better, I'd be in on Rachaad White.
If you flip-flopped him, I'd be all about Etienne, and I'd be super low on Rachaad White.
I think that's fair. Because from a receiving game standpoint, they did almost the exact same thing last year. Yeah. And with Etienne, he's touchdown dependent, but he also had 73 targets. That's good. I like 73 targets from a running back.
Yeah.
And there's nobody there I think that's going to take targets from him. But again, you're talking about drafting him in the 4th round, which just take a receiver there, I guess. I don't know. Why?
I'd much rather have Nico Collins.
Why was he such a big riser in our ADP? I wonder. That just.
I know. I found it very interesting.
I did too.
Interesting.
And so was Swifty.
Yeah, Swifty.
Not Taylor.
No.
But
the other Swift.
Yeah.
Did not nearly live up to the hype. And with Swift in Detroit, look, we got a lot of PTSD with Swift. When he went to Philadelphia, he didn't really gain that much value. He just kept falling and falling and falling, even though he was going to a better situation with the best offensive line in the NFL. First half of the year, he skyrockets up boards because he's super productive. He's a running back 1. And then he falls and falls and falls again because everyone on the Eagles offense decided to stop playing football. And on the defensive side of the ball, they just quit. They started 10-1, and then they ended 11-6. And then they got schooled by Baker Mayfield in the playoffs. So DeAndre Swift didn't really get much better at the end of the season. Now he goes to the Chicago Bears. Yeah, not as great of an offensive line. But there's a lot of passing weapons there, and there's a Caleb Williams or something that's
It's still an improved offensive line, too.
It's an improved offensive line. He is a receiving back, and I think what you're going to see with Roschon Johnson being there, and yes, even Khalil Herbert, who maybe they give him a drive or two every game as fresh legs to get multiple carries. I think Swift is going to be a big piece of the receiving game. That's been his bread and butter since he came into the league, and he just hasn't really been able to be that elite producing guy that we expected. But we're not expecting that at price right now. He's value equivalent to Terry McLaurin right now. Ricky Pearsall, a 24 early second if your drafts have yet to happen. I would assume that's maybe a late 25 first or a second.
Probably an early 25 second,
in the future as well.
Yeah.
But With Swift, I don't think he fits every single team build, but there are definitely some team blueprints that I've done. Excuse me.
Blueprints.
Bloop. And there have been some blueprints where I have recommended that you go ahead and invest in DeAndre Swift, especially in running back down tiers.
I mean, in PPR leagues, he's finished as the running back 15 through 20 every year he's been in. We know what DeAndre Swift is.
Yeah.
DeAndre Swift is a mid to low end running back too. Mm-hmm. You're getting him at
with high upside games.
Yes,
as well,
and a higher floor.
Actually, very Montgomery-esque, but not as touchdown dependent.
The opposite skill set.
Yeah, because he doesn't need touchdowns; he just gets reception.
Yeah. He's a running back. What on Keep Trade Cut right now?
He is the running back 17. But he's on one of those classic 3-year deals going on right now. So
second year out
after second year, and that's pretty.
I mean,
good.
He's being valued as a running back 17, and on average, he's finished the running back like 17 in his career. That's his prices now. I'd say it's appropriate.
Yeah.
I don't have any major gripes with it. Isaiah Pacheco. Look, I mean, Isaiah Pacheco, a lot of people look at last year and they're like, oh, Isaiah Pacheco is breaking.
Honestly, he's probably the most puzzling riser to me in this entire
because you don't think it's deserved?
No, I don't think it's deserved at all.
I mean,
they just went into the first. They just went to the first round this year and drafted another wide receiver after signing one in free agency in Marquise Brown. So you add 2 talented wide receivers, at least high upside wide receivers that have ability to be very talented and productive there. And Rashee, even though he has a fast car, will be playing this year. Travis Kelce gets an extension. I think they're going to try to look. Even though they won the Super Bowl last year without throwing the ball as much as they did, it still was an ugly offense, and they could have been a lot better. And they got beat by the Raiders on Christmas. They just won because they had Patrick Mahomes and an amazing defense. Like they can get better on the offensive side of the ball, and that is probably going to be like through utilizing the skill set of Patrick Mahomes as a passer. And I think what does that mean for Pacheco? That means that he's going to be an effective NFL weapon because they'll still have that dimension. Implementing the run like they have the last couple of years has been a big reason why they won the Super Bowl, but it isn't going to be the reason that you win your dynasty championships because it's going to show more on the field than it is in fantasy, in my opinion, because of what they've been doing, especially this offseason. So with him, guys, I'm going to keep saying this. He's never been a running back 1.
He was running back 1 in points per game last year. He's 15.28 points per game. He only missed 3 games. So had he actually played out the season, he would have been the running back 7 on the season. And I don't like to play the excuses card, but like from a production standpoint, when he was healthy, he was good. Mm-hmm. Like he was starting running back caliber. And so he's being valued where? Running back what on Keep Trade Cut?
He's running back 13.
I mean, I get it and I don't. I just think like there are better down tiers for somebody like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a Jonathan Brooks who's not much higher than him in value right now.
I mean, I'm definitely making
There's
that
a
move.
Rashad White who's less valuable than Isaiah Pacheco.
And Rashad White's just more productive. Yeah. He just is more productive.
There's a Trey Benson who's breathing down James Conner's neck.
Yeah. Mike Evans, another guy, and look, the reason Mike Evans has gone up in value is because A, they didn't draft a real receiver in Tampa Bay. I mean, McMillan is good, but he's not somebody that's going to take away from Mike Evans by any means at all. It's like they're searching for that wide receiver 3 that they've been looking for the past couple of years. They've tried on a couple different players, but he obviously coming off of a year where Mike Evans was extremely productive, extremely good at football. I think that he's 16.5, almost 17 points per game last year. He was the wide receiver 7 in PPR leagues. Mm-hmm. I think it's warranted that Mike Evans went up in value. I think he's a veteran that can help you win your leagues. I just wonder if his value went up and we're buying before he inevitably does go back down in value. Like, what are the odds that Mike Evans does that again this year? I would say without Dave Canales, with Chris Godwin moving back to the slot, I would say fairly low that he does that again this year. But is he a guy that's probably going to help you win your championship? Yeah, and this is just one of those things we talked about earlier in the video where veterans are increasing in value. Look at the median age for these guys that are increasing in value. I mean, they're almost all veterans. It's officially veteran buy season for contenders. It is.
Yeah.
And so with Mike Evans, that's what's happening here. It's also what's happening with Joe Mixon.
Yeah, Joe Mixon is a guy that I have
just completely crapped on year after year.
My internal struggle with Joe Mixon is it's really, really, really hard to really land on what I think about him going into this year. Because what he got paid is undeniable. His contract is undeniable. His situation has a lot of questions. There were productive running backs in Devin Singletary last year there, but again, with less wide receivers. Look, even though he was the running back 5 or the running back 6 last year, it didn't really come towards the end, until the end of the season when he started racking up again the touchdowns. And for me, to see him skyrocket up boards when he's value equivalent to an Amari Cooper, to a Derrick Henry, a Stephon Diggs, a Deontay Johnson, George Kittle, I'm more inclined to take those other guys than I am Joe Mixon. I know you think a little bit differently. I'm more willing to bet on Diggs, Collins, and Tank Della's talents than I am as Mixon, even though they play different positions. Like, one of those guys has got to be the odd man out, right? One of those guys is going to have to produce less than you would expect.
Probably.
And Mixon might be that guy. I don't know. I'd like to hear your thoughts because I know you're higher on him than I am.
It's not even necessarily that I'm high on him. He's the okayest value in fantasy football right now in Dynasty. He's like I'm like, yeah, okay. Like, he's going around Amari Cooper. Okay. He's going around George Kittle. Okay.
Yeah.
I just like with Mixon, it's like, yeah, he could be good. He could be bad, but he could be good. Historically, he's been good. But there's a lot of weapons this year. But he's played on good offenses before and still held his own. But he's getting old. But it didn't matter last year. But he only had big games. Well, the big games count.
The big games counted. It's tough to evaluate last year because of how much was going on in Cincinnati, because his production didn't really come until all those guys started leaving the offense, all the starters.
But it came nonetheless.
And then he became the focal
And
point.
so that's why I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, his efficiency was pretty much the same as it was the year before.
Okay.
Flirting around 4 yards per carry, which is under average, I think.
4 is like...
Or is that just above
like,
average?
That's like around the median. Okay.
Okay.
He's okay.
He's a very meh runner and has been for a long time, and he has gotten a lot of production from the touchdowns, and he hasn't lost that, in fairness. Like 2021, 13 touchdowns on the ground, 3 in the air. We said that would go down. Okay, in 2022, it did a little bit. 7 touchdowns on the ground, 2 in the air. He still was a running back 1. Okay, that's going to go down again. 2023, 9 touchdowns on the ground, 3 in the air.
Okay.
Like he kind of just gets what he gets. But
I know. That's why I don't care.
I don't know what to think about him. Like
I'm okay with it. Like, if you own Joe Mixon, I'm not like sell or buy. I'm just like, you have a Joe Mixon. Cool.
That is probably the best description of Joe Mixon that I've ever heard anyone say. He's probably the okayest value in Dynasty Fantasy Football right now.
He's okay. Like, I have Joe Mixon. Cool. I don't have Joe Mixon. All right.
Cool.
I'm fine with that. That's just how I feel. Like, I don't have a strong opinion. I'm definitely not like, oh, he's a bad value, he's not going to do anything. I'm definitely not like, oh, he's going to have a top 3 running back season on that good offense. It's like, I don't think either is going to. I think he's probably going to be decent. So he's priced decently. I don't think he's like grossly overpriced. So these are guys, again, like, whether or not you think they should be this high or not, you can let us know. But I mean, we kind of have our own opinions, but according to our ADP database, they're climbing up Dynasty rankings. So do us a huge favor. If you play Dynasty, drop a like, make sure you subscribe to the channel, head over to flockfantasy.com/domain, use code domain, choose the mother flocker tier, get a team blueprint. It's the craziest sequence of events in all of human history. Code domain, mother flocker, blueprint. See you later.